It is therefore ordered that you shall be put to death by electrocution in the method prescribed by law.
I will never get to see my baby brother graduate high school, go to college, graduate college, get married, have children. I will never be an aunt, and my children will never know their uncle.
We never go in those neighborhoods and take people out.
This is Christa Pike, a 19-year-old woman sitting inside a Tennessee courtroom, facing capital murder charges for one of the most sadistic the state had ever seen. It all began on January 12, 1995. Christa was a student at a Job Corps training program in Knoxville, and on that day she had lured her classmate, 19-year-old Colleen Slemmer, into a wooded area behind the campus. Pike believed at the time that Colleen had been flirting with her boyfriend, and that jealousy made her angry enough to kill. Now, whether that jealousy was well-founded or not was not the question. What was real was that it set the stage for a crime which prosecutors later described as a ritualistic execution.
Christa was angry because she had heard, or she was accusing Colleen of having designs on Daryl's ship, and she wasn't going to let anybody get her boyfriend.
But Christa wasn't alone. Alongside her was the 17-year-old Darryl Ship, who was her boyfriend and also the catalyst for this violence. And there was also 18-year-old Shadala Peterson, who stood watch. Once they had successfully lured Colleen into the woods, the attack began. Pike and Ship slashed Colleen with a box cutter, beat her with a meat cleaver, and in a final act of cruelty, crushed her skull with a chunk of asphalt. The assault dragged on for more than 30 minutes until Colleen gave up the ghost, but even then, death wasn't enough for Christa. In those final moments, she carved a pentagram into Colleen's chest. When officers finally discovered the body, they were horrified. First, it was obvious that Colleen had fiercely fought to stay alive. There were defensive wounds all over her arms, and as the officers surveyed the scene, they quickly realized that this was a brutality that came from something deeply personal.
It's where her body was found.
Bob, university student. It did not occur on the bike trail. It was not a random or a stranger-to-stranger incident. The motive of the crime appears to be a love triangle.
Immediately, the police began their investigation. The trail led them straight to Christa. But there was even something else that stunned detectives. In an act of cold cruelty, she had cut away a piece of Colleen's skull and kept it as a trophy.
This is the skull from the victim.
She even carried it around campus. When brought into custody, Christa didn't hold back.
I don't even think I just like that because she made me so mad. And I just couldn't with her. And she was just going, please don't. I said, shut up, I don't want to talk to you, I want you to talk to me.
In court, prosecutors leaned heavily on the testimony of the medical examiner, who laid out the shocking extent of Colleen's injuries.
Her skull and gray matter did spill from Colleen's head.
Detectives also testified about her attitude in custody.
They toyed with her. They played cat and mouse with her. They would let her get up. She would beg for her life. At one point, they said that she told them, just let me go. I'll not say anything. And they said, you know, we can't do that. You know, we've already...
The jury didn't take long. Christa Pike was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy. The judge sentenced her to death by electrocution.
It is therefore ordered that you shall be put to death by electrocution in the method prescribed by law, and that you shall be transferred to the custody of the warden at the Tennessee Prison for Women. And further, on the 12th day of January, 1997, your body shall be subjected to shock by sufficient current of electricity. May God have mercy upon you.
As the sentence was read, Pike broke down in tears.
Mr. Bates, please hold Miss Pike in the dock. Please hold Miss Pike in the dock.
I love you. I love you.
But there was no comfort for the kid as she was led away to death row. As for her accomplices, they faced lighter sentences. Darryl Ship, a minor at the time, received life with parole after 25 years. Shadala Peterson, the lookout, got probation. But Pike's story had not yet ended, as she still continues to appeal her sentence from behind bars. So far, all her appeals have continued to be denied.
I did something horrible that is unacceptable, and I realize that. But I don't deserve to die for the actions of 3 individuals.
Legal blow for the only woman on Tennessee's death row. A judge has denied Christa Pike's motion to have her sentence
It would seem that it all points back to what she had said.
Everything that I did that night, I knew what I was doing.
And the court never seemed to forget her words. Christa Pike wept as she was sentenced to breaking down under the weight of her own brutality. But how does that compare to TJ Lane, who laughed and mocked the families of his victims as they poured out their grief?
I'm saying pull the that killed your son, now your basic memory. Love you.
This is TJ Lane, a 17-year-old high school student standing trial in Ohio, and he is facing charges of aggravated murder for one of the most shocking school shootings in the state's history. On the morning of February 27, 2012, Lane walked into the cafeteria at Chardon High School. Students were eating breakfast, chatting, starting their day. But Lane wasn't there for breakfast. He was carrying a .22 caliber handgun, and he opened fire on the unsuspecting students.
911, where's your emergency?
We just had a shooting at our school. We need to get out of here. Oh my God.
Okay, ma'am, we got a school shooting. Ma'am, what school?
Chardon High School.
Chardon High School?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You seen him shoot how many?
I saw him take out 2, and then I was gone. I was out of there.
Okay, were the students still alive?
I didn't know, ma'am. I didn't even check. I just got out of there.
One of the first people to react was assistant football coach Frank Hall, who ran toward the shots instead of away from them. He chased Lane out of the building and into the woods. Moments later, the police were able to track Lane down and arrest him without much resistance.
I don't know why this happened. I only wish I could have done more. I'm not a hero. Just a football coach and a study hall teacher.
But the actions of TJ Lane had left the students traumatized, including his own sister.
Sitting in that room in shock, as we all comforted one another, I heard a police officer outside of the window say that they suspected TJ Lane. When those words hit me, I shook and cried and denied that all this could be true.
3 students lost their lives at the hands of Lane that day. They were 16-year-old Daniel Parmertor, 17-year-old Russell King Jr., and 16-year-old Demetrius Hewlin, who later died at the hospital. Another student, Nick Walczak, survived the attack but was left permanently paralyzed. All of the affected victims were Lane's classmates, and one of the deceased had recently started dating Lane's ex-girlfriend.
Scott, prosecutors have said publicly that TJ Lane chose his targets at random. But investigators tell CBS News that he knew his alleged victims well, and that one of the key factors that may have led to the shooting was that Lane's girlfriend had broken up with him the week before and started dating one of the boys he allegedly killed.
Back at the station, detectives read Lane his Miranda rights before beginning the interrogation.
Sat down in the cafeteria table and fired first through the book bag.
Once the police were through with their investigations, Lane was charged as an adult with 3 counts of aggravated murder. In court, prosecutors revealed disturbing details about his home life, an abusive father with a criminal record, and a mother who was often absent. They also pointed the attention of the court to Lane's friends, who described him as distant, quiet, and emotionally detached.
He'd be sitting there, by himself and everything. And, I feel like I failed as a friend because I should have, at least gone up to him and said, how was your day?
At first, his attorneys entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. But once the court found him competent to stand trial, Lane changed course quickly and instead pleaded guilty to all charges.
Then, as to count 1, do you plead guilty to on or about February 27, 2012 at Geauga County, Ohio, purposefully and with prior calculation and design causing the of Demetrius Hewlin, being aggravated murder?
Yes.
Now, while Lane might have pleaded guilty to avoid the penalty, He was far from being remorseful for his actions, and he made sure the court remembered this in one final cruel act.
This is the case of the State of Ohio against Thomas M. Lane, case 12C.
When he appeared in court, he wore a plain white shirt, and scrawled across the front in black marker was a single word.
Thank you, Your Honor. To my left is Nikolas.
This was the very same word he wore on the shirt the day of the
You feeling sick or ill or anything like that? No, just cold. Okay, we're gonna get you some dry clothes to change into, okay?
But that was not all Lane did. While the families of his victims poured out their grief in tearful statements,
I will never get to see my baby brother graduate high school, go to college, graduate college, get married, have children. I will never be an aunt, and my children will never know their uncle.
Lane smirked, laughed, and offered only this in response.
I'm saying pull the trigger, the done. You know, basically not right. Love you.
Lane was sentenced to life in prison, but this story was far from ending. On the night of September 11th, 2014, Lane escaped from a hike. Alongside two other inmates, he used a makeshift ladder, scaled the fence, and disappeared into the night.
He did scale our perimeter fence, and again, this is an ongoing investigation.
One of the escapees was caught within minutes, but Lane and another were still at large as darkness fell that day. But police were not folding yet. They launched a massive manhunt, blocking roads, deploying helicopters, combing through wooded areas. For hours, TJ Lane was out there.
Officials launched an intensive search, capturing convicted killer Lindsey Bruce on prison grounds. But Lane and inmate Clifford Oppered, in for kidnapping and robbery, remained on the loose. Authorities told neighbors to lock their doors and stay inside.
But by morning, police finally found him near a church just 100 yards from the prison.
Two members of the Highway Patrol's Special Response Team captured Lane around 1:30 Friday morning using a canine. He was in woods just 100 yards from the 18-acre prison complex. Officials say he didn't put up a fight and didn't say much before they returned him to the prison.
He was recaptured and transferred to a maximum security facility, where he remains today, serving 3 consecutive life sentences.
In Ohio, a teenager convicted of a high school shooting that killed 3 students is back in custody after daring escape overnight. TJ Lane climbed a prison fence last night with 2 prison inmates.
But for the families of Chardon High School, no prison wall can ever contain the loss. TJ Lane taunted grieving parents with cruel words. But as for this defendant, she collapsed in tears as the reality of spending life in prison at just 14 years old came crashing down. This is Carly Madison Gregg, charged with first-degree murder, attempted murder, and tampering with evidence in Brandon, Mississippi. At just 14 years old, Carly's actions would forever shatter 2 families and stun an entire community. That afternoon, she returned home from school with her mother, Ashley Smiley. Security footage from the garage showed nothing unusual. No signs of conflict, just a typical day in their quiet Brandon neighborhood. But beneath that calm surface, something dark was brewing. Because just a few hours later, Carly Gregg took a .357 Magnum and shot her mother 3 times, killing her. As Heath drove into his home, he found a scene out of a horror movie. He found Ashley dead and faced his stepdaughter, armed and ready to. Carly fired at Heath, striking him in the neck, but the wounded man managed to disarm her. Now disarmed, she fled into the backyard, jumped the fence, and disappeared into the neighborhood. Then, the bewildered man called 911.
Maybe something beyond her control?
911, what's the location of your emergency? I went to 14. I don't know what happened. My wife is dead.
He also explained that he was able to disarm Carly before she bolted from the scene.
What's her name? Carly Gregg. Carly Gregg? Does she still have a gun on her? I took it from her. She ran. You took it from her and she ran? Yes, sir. She was screaming something at me I couldn't understand. I locked the door. She's outside. I don't know what's going on. How old is she? 14.
Officers rushed to the scene, finding Heath wounded, shaken up terribly, but still very much alive.
Hey, hey, come outside for me, buddy. Hey, come here. Hey, where's your wife at, buddy? Where's your wife at?
She's dead on the floor in that room.
As the officer cleared and entered the house, they discovered Ashley's body on the floor of Carly's bedroom.
I need medical here.
Meanwhile, Carly had fled into the woods. But with the search finally on, it was only a matter of time before the police would finally apprehend her.
Kilo unit has got the female subject in custody. Investigations requested she be brought here to the scene.
Step out real quick for me. All right. That's what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them around to the front of you, okay? I'm going to move the handcuffs around to the front of you.
And right before taken to the police station, she asked the officers a rather interesting question.
All right. I don't know, baby. I can't talk to you about this.
Investigators quickly pieced together a disturbing timeline using the family's home security cameras. The footage showed Carly methodically moving through the house, carefully hiding the hands holding the gun from the camera right before. But the most chilling evidence came from her actions immediately after the murder. She texted her stepfather with her now deceased mother's phone, posing as her and asking when he would be back home. Then she calmly contacted a friend of hers to come over and see her mother's body. As the investigation unfolded, a complex picture emerged. Carly had no history of violence or family conflict. In fact, by all accounts, she was a bright, friendly girl with plenty of friends and academic success. The defense capitalized on this.
This is not a whodunit case. We know who took action on March 19th to bring about the death of Ashley Smiley and the injuries to Heath Smiley. However, this is a why case. Why did it happen? Why did this exceptional child with no history of violence, who was loved by her friends, her teachers, her parents, who had a good home life, who loved her mother, why did she her mom? Why did she shoot at her stepfather?
There were several journal entries that backed the claim that Carly had struggled with anxiety, and she had even met a therapist. The courtroom drama that followed would test the limits of justice and compassion.
She told me that the voices were getting worse, that they were becoming more urgent, more insistent, more of a problem for her.
Based on your evaluation, was there a period of time in which Carly's mental health issues began to be more significant?
Yes, her journal entry from March 12th of 2024, 1 week before the incident. So writing on March 12th, Tuesday, she writes, "I think I had a psychotic break earlier. The whole ordeal was quite silly. I actually spoke with one of the voices in my head."
Even her stepfather testified that the events of that fateful day did not match his stepdaughter.
In all the time that you've known Carly, would you describe her as callous?
No.
Would you describe her as calculating?
No, except with math.
Would you describe her as diabolical?
No.
How would you describe Carly?
She's just a sweet little girl ever since I've known her. I still to this day don't think she ever even recognized me. Something was wrong there. I don't know what, but something was off. It was very evident to me immediately that something was very, very off with me.
But for the prosecution, the chilling calmness after the was important to show a girl who knew exactly what she was doing and went ahead anyway. Also, some of the entries in the journal did not help Carly's case at all.
There's a lot of things in these journals, and some of them are concerning. She says, you know, what do I believe? And she writes these tenets down, and one of them says, it's okay to be evil.
And when asked if he believed in his expertise that Carly was bipolar, as the defense suggested, the forensic psychiatrist the state called as witness had one answer.
I highly doubt and do not believe that Carly has bipolar disorder.
In fact, he put it in clearer words.
So my opinion is that Carly does not meet Mississippi's standard for insanity at the time of the offense, and that she knew the nature, quality, and wrongfulness of her actions during that day.
It was finally time for the jury, and they came back with one unanimous verdict.
All right, the verdicts appear to be in proper form. Verdict of the jury is count one. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment.
Carly Gregg's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Tears streamed down her face as the reality of the verdict set in.
Beginning on the first row. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes, sir. Sir, is that your verdict? Yes, sir. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes, sir, is that your verdict? Yes. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes. On the back row, sir, is that your verdict? Yes, sir. Ma'am, is that your verdict?
And the judge then polled each juror individually, confirming the verdicts and emphasizing the gravity of their decision. But the emotional weight only grew heavier as the sentencing phase began.
Your sentences will be as follows. As to count one, the jury having fixed the verdict at life imprisonment, this court will sentence you to life imprisonment. As to count two, you'll be sentenced to life imprisonment. As to count three, you'll be sentenced to 10 years to serve.
The courtroom fell silent as the full impact of the sentence settled in. 2 consecutive life terms plus 20 years, with no possibility of parole for a kid who hadn't attained their 16th birthday yet. Carly Gregg broke down in tears when her sentence was read. But how does that compare to the reaction of a defendant who launched an attack on a woman nearly 100 years old? This is Gavin Ramsay, who's charged with aggravated murder, aggravated burglary, kidnapping, and abuse of a corpse in Wadsworth, Ohio. April 2018 started like any other month in the quiet town of Wadsworth. But under the surface, something far darker was about to unfold. Ramsay, just 17 years old, was about to commit one of the most disturbing crimes the town had ever seen. The victim, Margaret Douglas, was 98 years old, a woman who lived alone, fiercely independent, and dreaming of reaching her 100th birthday. No one could have imagined what would happen next.
She's been hard to sleep. I touched it, it was cold, felt clammy, but felt like styrofoam to me.
On April 6, 2018, Gavin Ramsay broke into Margaret Douglas's home. He videotaped her as she slept, then murdered her, strangled her, abused her body, and hid it so well that police missed it during their first search. The investigation began with a missing person report. Margaret's family quickly realized something was wrong when she didn't answer calls. Police entered her home, but found nothing unusual at first. Margaret's body was eventually found, concealed in a closet by one of Margaret's relatives. The shocking brutality of the crime shook the entire community, but the horror didn't end there. As the investigation progressed, Ramsay's true nature began to emerge. His journal entries revealed violent fantasies and a complete lack of empathy. Investigators uncovered evidence connecting him directly to the crime scene. Ramsay's arrest was swift. The community breathed a sigh of relief, but the emotional damage was already done. The legal process moved quickly. Ramsay initially pleaded not guilty, but later changed his plea to no contest for all charges.
Do you understand that a plea of no contest, while not an admission of your guilt, is an acknowledgement of the truthfulness and accuracy of all of the allegations contained in the indictment?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand that upon pleading no contest, the court can immediately proceed to find you guilty?
Yes, Your Honor.
And upon finding you guilty, the court could immediately choose to impose sentence?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand the court is not bound by any sentencing agreement which may be reached between the state of Ohio and Attorney Smith Anson on your behalf?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand that count one, that being aggravated murder, carries with it a potential penalty of 20 years to life, 25 years to life, 30 years to life, or life without the eligibility of parole in prison?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand that carries with it a potential fine of $25,000 and that a prison term is presumed mandatory.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand that count 2 carries with it a possible prison term of 20 years to life, 25 years to life, 30 years to life, or life without the eligibility of parole in prison, and a prison term is mandatory?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand it also carries with it a possible fine of $25,000?
Yes, ma'am.
During the sentencing hearing, Ramsay delivered a pre-written apology, expressing regret and shame for his actions.
I'm so sorry for what I did. I constantly live in regret and shame because of it.
Margaret's family confronted Ramsay in court. Their victim impact statements were powerful and direct.
I find him to be pathetic and a coward, and someone that preyed on the most vulnerable person that he could find and attack her in her most vulnerable moment, in the middle of the night when she was asleep. She loved life.
Ramsay's mother also took the stand, partially blaming herself and his medication for his actions.
Blame, saying she allowed her son to take the depression drug Zoloft, which she says changed him.
You can't make me believe that my decision wasn't the ultimate cause of all of this. To simply say I'm sorry to a victim's family, that's not enough. You can't undo their heartache.
The judge sentenced Ramsay to life without parole, but due to changes in juvenile sentencing laws, he became eligible for parole after 25 years. As Ramsay was led away in handcuffs, the community felt a sense of closure, but the tragedy and loss remained deeply felt. Gavin Ramsay broke down in tears as he was led out of the courtroom, but here is a defendant who sat in court smiling as if the brutal murder of a mother and near death of her child were nothing more than entertainment. Or this is Christopher Gribble, convicted of first-degree murder, attempted murder, conspiracy, burglary, and witness tampering. After the brutal 2009 Mount Vernon home invasion in New Hampshire, October 4th, 2009, Mount Vernon, New Hampshire, 19-year-old Christopher Gribble, along with Stephen Spader, William Marks, and Quinn Glover, broke into the Cates family's home. Their purpose was clear and horrifying: to kill anyone inside for fun. The group entered through the basement after finding the doors locked. In the dark, they found Kimberly Cates and her 11-year-old daughter, Jamie, asleep in their beds. What followed was one of the most brutal attacks in New Hampshire's history. Kimberly was hacked to death with a machete, suffering 32 wounds. Jamie miraculously survived more than a dozen stab and hack wounds. The group had formed a club called the Disciples of Destruction, and the initiation into the club included this random, planned thrill. To cover their tracks, they also lined up a fake alibi.
Whenever we told him, he'd say we were there from that time on, so that we had an alibi.
All doors locked, they forced their way in through a basement window. Their plan called for an empty house, but finding Kimberly and Jamie asleep in bed changed nothing. They immediately launched an attack on the unsuspecting inhabitants of the house.
Steve started hacking at the bed with the machete. Okay. They started screaming because they heard something. Apparently he missed them mostly. But I heard him hit the mom. And so I dove in and stabbed her a few times in the chest. Probably 2 or 3. Yep. Pretty sure it was 3. She started gurgling. Steve was just away. He totally lost it. I was controlled, but I didn't really feel much of anything.
Yep. Okay.
I thought I would, but I didn't.
What were Quinn and Billy doing?
They stayed by the door. Okay. They didn't do anything. All honesty, we did everything. The girl jumped up. I almost sensed her in the dark get up and jumped over her mother. And Steve was away, and she jumped right into my arms.
After the attack on Kimberly, Gibble turned on Jamie.
With his steel-toe boots, and then hit her in the head with the machete. At least that's so he said he did aim for the head.
Yeah.
I was backing off because I knew Steve was losing it. I could tell. Then he turned around. He looked like Jason from Halloween with the machete in his hand. And I told him, "Steve, relax. It's just me. It's Chris." He was breathing hard and relaxed. And Quinn had the good sense to go turn the breakers back on and the lights went on.
Yeah.
The mom was obviously not going to make it. The girl I was pretty sure wasn't going to. She was completely out. There was blood all over the place. there's at least one slash across the mom's face, down from the top left to the bottom right, where I could see where he dented her skull with the machete, and I was like, hanging out almost. Steve hacked her a couple more times after that and threw the blanket over, but she was still breathing.
Yeah.
So I went over and stabbed her in the side of the neck to make sure her artery bled out. Not a lot came out, so I figured she was probably gone. I figured 3 stab wounds to the girl would probably have her gone anyway, so we didn't bother checking her. We grabbed just what jewelry.
After the attack, he stripped off their bloody clothes, stuffed them in a bag, and threw it in the Nashua River.
To throw the trash bag into the river, Nashua River.
Okay.
We drove down on Depot Road, just down the road, where there's a slight entrance where there's a bar covering it. Autumn got out and took the bar out. I carried the bag. We went kind of a long ways down the trail and tossed into the river. It didn't sink, so we were kind of disappointed. Both the jewelry boxes were in there. One just had a bunch of coins in it, but we took most of the jewelry that looked like it was worth anything.
Yeah.
Took it with us.
Okay.
After that, we went back to Autumn's place. Not much else to say except for yesterday. Yesterday, we went over to Amherst. The whole thing happened with being in the cul-de-sac. I was telling the truth about that.
Yeah.
The cop pulled us over. We got in there. Eldon and Jillian were with us.
Police swiftly connected the dots, and soon all perpetrators were arrested. While in police custody, Gribble realized his co-conspirator had confessed.
As I remembered, only me and Steve knew that we'd buried the weapons, and if he was saying things, then they could have everything. So it didn't really matter at that point. I was like, well, if they give me the death penalty, then I'll just be dead and this all will be over with anyway.
Faced with overwhelming evidence and the threat of the death penalty, Gribble also decided to confess.
And he came back in. He was all excited. Brought the tape recorder back in, and that's when I told them.
The courtroom would have become a theater of horror as Gribble's confession played. He sat, detached, as the victims' families listened to the graphic details of the attack. He even smiled in court, seemingly amused by the proceedings.
Ever have to endure, and the claims that both boys made after their arrests are truly astonishing. I don't think I've seen a level of evil this strong in quite some time.
No, I smile because it's funny that all the people in there have no idea who they're messing with.
Oh, his trial exposed disturbing details of his upbringing, failed interventions, and his descent into violent obsession.
Long-term psychotherapy, especially when I found out that he had expressed homicidal ideation to Dr. Calorico.
Tell me about that, how you found out that he had homicidal ideation.
Well, after I finished the evaluation, she invited me in she was very concerned. He expressed significant homicidal ideation, which I was not aware of, and that raised my concern about his dangerousness.
The jury heard it all. The premeditation, the violence, the attempts to cover up the crime, and Gribble's own words about his role.
Christopher Gribble would admit to the police what he had done and provide harrowing details on his involvement. Please be advised that from this point on, the details explained become incredibly graphic and disturbing.
This is a continuation of an interview that we ended maybe 45 minutes or so ago.
So then came the verdict, guilty on all counts.
The minute the first guilty verdict was read, guilty on all charges.
During the victim impact statement, David Cates, Tanii, Kimberly's husband, and Jamie's father delivered a powerful victim impact statement.
Through these accounts, I've heard my wife's last breath. I have listened to my child's screams. I have watched as Jamie's perfect little body was mutilated and tortured.
Mr. Cates said while Kimberly Cates was a fighter full of life, she died with the thought her daughter never made it.
In the last moments of her life, the thought of her daughter dying next to her was more than she could bear.
Before sentencing, Judge Jillian Abramson addressed Gribble and what he has done.
And to hear the judge.
But I believe the record will thoroughly support my belief that infinity is not enough jail time for you.
Gribble received 2 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 76 years for the other charges, ensuring he would never leave prison.
You are sentenced as follows in 10S231 to the New Hampshire State Prison for life without parole.
Christopher Gribble showed no remorse for his actions, and so did Nikolas Cruz, who sat stone-faced through 4 months of testimony, showing no remorse as parents of slain children beg the court for justice. This is Nikolas Cruz, standing trial for one of the deadliest school shootings in American history. 17 counts of premeditated murder, 17 counts of attempted murder, and a long list of other violent charges. The story begins not on the day of the massacre, but months earlier.
My name is Nick, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. My goal is at least 20 people with an AR-15 and a couple tracer rounds. I think I can get done. Location is Stoneman Douglas in Parkland, Florida. It's going to be a big event. And when you see me on the news, you'll all know who I am. You're all going to die.
But that is far from all Cruz did. He also had been leaving disturbing digital footprints all over the internet. In fact, 4 months before the tragedy, someone using his screen name left a chilling comment under a YouTube video. "I'm gonna be a professional school shooter." The FBI was alerted, but their search hit an end. That loose thread would later become one of the most haunting missed warnings. And then came February 14th, 2018, Valentine's Day.
So here's the plan. I'm going to go take an Uber in the afternoon before 2:40. From there, I'll go onto school campus, walk up the stairs, unload my bags, and get my AR and shoot people down at the main courtyard.
At Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, students were counting down the last minutes of the school day. Backpacks were zipped. Conversations about weekend plans filled the hallways. But Cruz wasn't thinking about any of that. He had returned to campus armed with a legally purchased AR-15 rifle, dressed for battle, and ready to unleash devastation.
19-year-old Nikolas Cruz seen here loading an AR-15 in the hallway of Stoneman Douglas High School as a frightened freshman walks past. The Sun-Sentinel reporting that according to that freshman, Cruz telling him, "You'd better get out of here, things are going to start getting messy."
He moved with calculated purpose, classroom by classroom, hallway by hallway, and opening fire without hesitation.
Holy.
Oh my God!
Within minutes, 17 innocent lives were stolen, and another 17 were left wounded.
In the back of the room in the corner and just waited, and we just covered our ears. It was insane.
I saw 2 girls dead next to each other, holding hands.
I heard 6 shots, loud shots. Right after I heard that, I was like, oh my God, we gotta go. So I started running as fast as I can.
Soon emergency calls began to flood dispatch.
In all, there were 157 emergency calls, many made by parents, getting texts from their kids.
There were 3 shots in your room? There were 3 shots in her room. Okay. Oh my God.
You can hear the emotional plea of one mother talking to her child on the other line.
I love you. I love you. It's going to be fine. Can you hide somewhere? Can you play dead?
And in the middle of all this chaos, Cruz slipped away. He abandoned his rifle, ditched his vest, and tried to blend in with fleeing students. Hours later, police found him wandering in a nearby residential neighborhood and took him into custody without resistance. But once inside the interrogation room, Cruz's behavior was rather strange. When detectives pressed him about what happened that day, he had a wild reason for his actions.
Never. And what does the voice say to you? Well, what does it tell you to do?
Burn, kill, destroy.
Okay, burn, kill, destroy what?
Anything.
The trial that followed was unlike anything Florida had seen. His defense attorneys never denied the massacre. The evidence was overwhelming. Instead, they leaned on his troubled past, painting a portrait of a damaged child. A boy born to a mother addicted to drugs and alcohol. A life derailed before it even began.
And Miss Deacon will tell you the drugs that they would do, the alcohol that they would drink, and she will tell you what the streets of US 1 and A1A were like in the late 90s. And she will tell you that despite both of them being mothers, the most important thing was them getting high and getting drunk.
Cruz himself tried to argue that marijuana had altered his mind that day.
And I love you, and I know you don't believe me, but I have to live with this every day, and it brings me nightmares, and I can't live with myself sometimes, but I try to push through because I know that's what you guys would want me to do. I hate drugs, and I believe this country would do better if everyone would stop smoking marijuana and doing all these drugs and causing racism and violence out in the street.
But prosecutors fought back with his own words, disturbing online posts, violent threats, and evidence of careful planning that dismantled the idea of a crime committed by impulse.
So these are YouTube comments that came from the various accounts. The first one is from Nikolas Cruz Macavor at gmail.com on July 4th, 2017 at 12:06:18 UTC.
The courtroom grew heavier when the families of the victims took the stand.
Good afternoon. Mr. Hickson, is your father Mr. Christopher Hickson?
Yeah.
And is there something that you'd like to tell the jury about your dad?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's okay. I missed him.
Full word was used. You, ends, are nothing but absolute garbage. I wish you black people would just disappear. You're nothing in society. That's why in 2020 you will hear me on the news. I will kill as many black people as I can, and I will make sure I kill a lot. I will wear body armor, and I will be heavily armed. No mercy, no forgiveness, no regret. I will kill you, ends.
And through it all, Cruz showed moments of shocking detachment. At one point, he and his attorney were seen laughing together, his lawyer even flipping off the courtroom.
When these people are upset about specific things that have gone on from that table, like shooting the middle finger up at this court and laughing and joking, Miss McNeil, be quiet.
When the victim impact statements came, the pain was raw and unfiltered. Parents who had once fought in courtrooms themselves now fought back tears as they confronted the boy who had taken their
A prison where you will be other inmates' boy toy. A prison where your fellow prison inmates are just waiting to tear you apart, because from what I hear, are highly frowned upon and hated in prison. You will look back at the time that you spent in the Broward County Jail and see it as it was a hotel compared to the prison where you are headed.
One father, himself an attorney, delivered a blistering statement that cut through the room with surgical precision.
The fact that I have to share my world with you is disgusting. The fact that I have to breathe the same air you breathe is reprehensible. I can't wait till that ends. Hope that your death is slow and agonizing, because it won't be like a state execution.
Woman finally the sentence. After 4 months of agonizing testimony, Judge Elizabeth Scherer delivered her ruling. 34 consecutive life sentences, one for every person Cruz had murdered or wounded.
34 counts of the indictment for each sentence is to run consecutive, that is, one after another.
But Nikolas Cruz didn't cry or even apologize. He just sat there, offering nothing to the families who had lost everything. Nikolas Cruz offered nothing, no tears, no apology for his victims. But as for this 19-year-old who launched a racist attack on a black community, He remained stone-faced as he received his sentence. This is Payton Gendron, a 19-year-old in court, facing charges of first-degree murder and terrorism after carrying out one of the most racially motivated massacres in modern U.S. history. On May 14, 2022, Gendron left his hometown of Conklin, New York, and drove over 200 miles to Buffalo. He wasn't lost. He had chosen his destination with precision: a Tops Friendly Markets grocery store in a predominantly black neighborhood. Armed with an assault rifle covered in white supremacist slogans, wearing body armor, and live streaming the entire event, he walked into the store and opened fire.
When I first saw him shooting, he shot a woman, he shot a deacon, he shot another woman, and then he went in the store and started shooting again.
In just minutes, 10 people were dead. 3 more were wounded but survived. Witnesses described chaos, shoppers crawling, hiding, dialing loved ones in panic.
My granddaughter works here. She heard the shit, so she took herself and ran in the bathroom and locked the door.
I frequent this store all the time. I've never been afraid to be here.
When police arrived, Gendron was ready to turn the gun on himself. Officers talked him down and took him into custody. Later, investigators revealed the horrifying preparation behind the massacre. Gendron had scouted the store, rehearsed his approach, and published a 180-page manifesto online, vowing to kill as many Black Americans as possible.
It was straight up racially motivated hate crime from somebody outside of our community.
This is the worst nightmare that any community.
But it was inside the courtroom where the true weight of his crime came crashing down. The prosecutors branded him what he was: a domestic terrorist, radicalized online, and driven by pure racial hatred.
On May 14th of 2022, this defendant displayed a callous disregard for human life. He drove over 200 miles out of his way with one mission, with one goal: to kill as many Black people as possible. During that 3-hour drive, he could have turned around, but he wouldn't be deterred. He was steadfast to accomplish his goal of as many Black people as possible and starting.
Then came the victim impact statements. Families of those mothers, fathers, children stood and faced the man who had stolen everything from them.
I'm Vion Elliott. I'm Andre McNeil's brother. Me and Andre are 11 months and 8 days apart. On the 28th, I'll turn 53. On March 8th, he'll turn 54. Payton, you took this from me. You took the last of my line.
And as the proceedings went on and on, the tension grew unbearable. In one unforgettable moment, as a grieving family member described the loss of their loved one, rage almost took over.
We never go in no neighborhoods and take people out. Don't do it!
Through it all, Gendron sat motionless, and then came sentencing. When it was his turn to speak, the teenager stood, voice low, and offered an apology.
Of your loved ones, I cannot express how much I regret all the decisions I made leading up to my actions on May 14th. I did a terrible thing that day. I shot and killed people because they were Black. Looking back now, I can't believe I actually did it. I believed what I read online and acted out of hate.
But to the families sitting in that courtroom, those words meant nothing. For them, the massacre had ended lives and futures in seconds. Apologies couldn't undo that.
For you or your ignorant, hateful, and evil ideologies in a civilized society.
The judge delivered the only sentence possible: life in prison without the possibility of parole.
That you be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
Payton Gendron apologized right before being sentenced to life without parole. But how does that compare to another defendant, this time a 15-year-old whose apology also came a little too late? This is Ethan Crumbley, a 15-year-old sophomore standing trial in Michigan for an act of terror that shocked the nation. He faced 24 charges, including charges of first-degree murder, and terrorism. It was November 30th, 2021. The halls of Oxford High School were alive with chatter as students moved between classes. Hidden among them was Ethan carrying a backpack. Inside wasn't schoolwork. It was a loaded 9mm semi-automatic handgun. Moments later, the sound of gunfire ripped through the building. Ethan fired at anyone in sight, students in the hallways, then blindly through locked classroom doors. Some kids tried to escape out of windows while others huddled silently under desks, praying not to be found by Ethan.
Yeah, he said it's safe to come out.
Now, we're not willing to take that risk right now. I can't hear you. We're not taking that risk right now. Okay, well, come to the door and look at my bag, bro.
No. Yeah, bro.
He said bro.
He said bro. Red flag.
By the time police arrived, 4 students were and 7 others, including a teacher, were wounded. Ethan surrendered without resistance. Meanwhile, back at the station when his parents came by, Ethan had no response as to why he did the
He avoids making eye contact with them.
I don't think we need to ask any questions right now.
As the brief encounter ends, Ethan is only concerned about his cat, Dexter.
But what came out later showed chilling premeditation. On his phone, investigators found 2 videos recorded the night before. In them, Ethan calmly described his plan to kill his classmates. He wanted the world to know his name. The prosecution leaned on those recordings, alongside disturbing journal entries and witness testimony, to prove intent. Survivors took the stand, recounting in painful detail how their normal school day turned into a nightmare.
All of a sudden, I thought a balloon popped. I turned and I fell right to the ground. I remember hearing screams. I saw running, but I couldn't run. I was already down.
When it was his turn to speak, Ethan addressed the courtroom before sentencing. The judge responded with his own powerful remarks, condemning the deliberate choices Ethan made.
He could have changed his mind. Unfortunately, after shooting the first person, Phoebe Arthur, he could have changed his mind at that point. But he didn't. He continued to walk through the school, picking and choosing who was going to die.
Then came the final blow, life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Sentences of the court is that defendant shall serve life without the possibility of parole.
But the case didn't end with Ethan. Prosecutors turned their attention to his parents, James and Jennifer Crumbley. The gun Ethan used wasn't stolen. It was a Christmas gift from them. They had taken him to the shooting range, encouraged him, and ignored every red flag.
In the groundbreaking trial of Crumbley's mother, Jennifer, the first parent to stand trial for killings committed by their child. Jennifer Crumbley also went to the range with her son. You can see him showing her how to operate the weapon. Later, she posted to Instagram, "Mom and Son Day, my first time shooting a 9mm. I hit the bullseye."
One day before the massacre, a teacher discovered Ethan's disturbing drawing. A handgun, a bullet, and the words, "The thoughts won't stop. Help me. Blood everywhere." The school begged the Crumbleys to take him home and get counseling. They refused. The very next morning, Ethan carried the gun into school. After the shooting, James and Jennifer disappeared. U.S. Marshals launched a manhunt. Hours later, they were found hiding in a Detroit warehouse with $6,000 in cash.
It's dramatic body cam video of a SWAT team arresting the parents of school Ethan Crumbley.
In court, the parents of Ethan's victims confronted James and Jennifer directly, demanding answers for why they had armed their son despite the warnings.
Why you were running away from your son and your responsibilities. I was forced to do the worst possible thing a parent could do. I was forced to say goodbye to my medicine.
The blood of our children is on your hands too.
In the end, James and Jennifer Crumbley were sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter.
They asked for mercy, but were given the max, 10 to 15 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter. It's the first time in history that parents of a mass shooter have been held criminally responsible for their son's crimes.
They were the first parents in U.S. history to be held criminally responsible for their child's school shooting.